Hey, welcome to our mastermind. I hope we are doing great today. We're gonna have like two sessions. First, we giving priorities to those who had some interviews this week. We want to hear feedback. We want to see what the market is saying now, and we want to learn from that. And we also want to look at questions that you've been studying and you're coming across, and you feel like they're throwing you up. We want to handle that. And also, I will be giving feedback for the recordings that were shared with me on what I see the response was. I think that recording was shared also in the group as well. And I hope everyone listening to it. So I'm also going to be giving feedback about that. So let's get into questions and answer. Now, the first 30 minutes or so, we want to look at purely questions and answers. So if you challenge is not about any specific questions, we are going to deal with that specifically after we go through our question and answer, right? The reason we want to focus first on question and answer so that we can have like the first session for you to always refresh about that we did before you get into an interview. Now the second session, after we do our question and answer, is going to go more deeper, looking into the practical Jira board. And we're also going to revisit all the question and answer, but we now look at it practically, how it happens in a real environment and so. But the first part is, how will you say it? How will you respond to this in an interview, which is different from the deeper level we always need to go, right? So I see the questions on the, so put your question on the chat box. If you cannot put your question on the chat box, it's okay. Just raise your hand and you can also ask the question. All right, perfect. Question, what you do as a Scrum Master if your team do not meet the client expectation? All right, so what do you do as a Scrum Master if your team doesn't meet the client expectation? If your team doesn't meet the client expectation, it means you are also failing as a Scrum Master. Now, remember that one of the stuff I always kind of emphasize on is that your goal is not just to answer to a question because the question is being asked. Your goal is to analyze and see the technicality that they want in the question. So you might answer a couple of questions. It's more like self-evaluating. All right. So the question, what do you do as a Scrum Master if your team is not meeting the evaluation, is also evaluating you. How do you help your team? How do you ensure that your team is meeting the client experience? Now, if I want to handle this question, the first part of it is going to be, all right, what do I do if my team is not meeting the client expectation? In an interview format, first of all, you always need to acknowledge, thank you very much for that question. It's always very important. And why do you kind of introduce that, the thank you so much for that question? Because it introduces what? It introduces a gap, and it gives you the possibility to think about how to structure it. That's the reason why you don't go straight into answering a question. It doesn't mean that you must say thank you to all, that question for all questions. The reason you say that is to get you a moment to try to organize your question. Now, if my team is not meeting client expectation, first of all, I will take the blame because my goal as a Scrum Master is to be able to help my team to deliver value, which means that I need to be able to find out why they are not meeting the client expectation and what is the challenge. Now, in most of the cases, what I have seen that kind of limit the team not from meeting the client expectation is if the team is not prioritizing their work rightly, and if we are not having effective communication with the stakeholders. And also if the team doesn't really understand their capacity and what they can do in order to make sure that they are taking and delivering the right amount of work. So if a team takes so much and promise the client that they will deliver it, when they did not understand their capacity, they will not be able to do that. So Not meeting the client expectation is about the team not understanding their capacity. It's about the team not understanding what they can do. And it's about the team not also identifying the problem that is a problem and not being able to fix it. So that is more of a team dysfunctionality issue. And I've not really come across that because I try as much as possible to make sure that my team meet all of these criteria. Now you realize the way I answer this question, right? So not all questions you need to own it. There's some which I would just, you answer them in a technical way. All right. The second question says that, does every team in the Agile release train work on the project after 2 days PI planning? Yes. After the PI planning, all the teams are expected to start planning their iteration. So the purpose we have in the PI planning is to make sure that we identify the work that all the teams in the Agile release train need to start working on. And because all the teams are related and there is interdependency or there's dependency across the team, all the teams need to start working on their own part of the work. If not, if I'm working, let's say we're building a mobile app for booking, and one of the team is working on the API development, the other team is working on the mobile automation, the other team is working on building sensors issue. Now, if the other team is working on the vulnerability check, if the team that is supposed to first of all run vulnerability check, which we identify that is the most important value we want to deliver during this iteration, and they fail to start doing that, it means that they are blocking every other team that is supposed to pick up the work after the vulnerability check has been put. You see that? So all the teams need to start. And that is why your role as a Scrum Master after the Agile release train PI planning or after the PI planning is to communicate with teams that you're having dependency with them and do a check to see, okay, we are expecting you, based on the PI planning, we are expecting this delivery in the next 2 days. Can you still commit to this sprint in the next 2 days? Can you still meet up with this in the next 2 days? If they cannot meet up, that is a challenge. And if they cannot give you a tangible reason on what is causing the delay, you need to escalate that. If not, you're going to, your team is going to be marked as not being able to complete their work. But that probably might not be your fault. It might just be the fact that you're not able to communicate to the team that has a dependency and effectively address them, right? So our team need to start immediately after the Agile release train meeting, after the PI planning. All right. The other questions say also, can you recall a problem you face as a Scrum Master that you were unable to handle and has to call on someone else to help you? All right, this is a very technical question, and this question is about competency. It's just gonna, in another way, we can also say, how do you manage challenges, or at what point in time do you escalate a problem? So that's the same question. So you can say, yes, Scrum Master, there are issues which I might not be able to handle, not because I cannot handle it, but because they are not within my power. Let's say, for instance, I have a dependency with another Scrum team in my organization, or perfect. If it's an interview, you will not use, for instance, you want to bring yourself into the reality. You can say, all right, definitely, I'm going to answer this question in 2 ways. First way is that, all right, a point I've not been able to handle a question I call for someone else, I will say, okay, as a servant leader, one of the things is not always to have an answer, because even if you cannot do it, your answer lies in a communication with someone that will handle it. So I would not really want to say, there's been a time I'm able to do something and I call on someone else. I would rather say that there've been time I escalated some issues which were beyond my power to handle that. A typical example is when my team was having a dependency with another team, and we're expecting them to complete their own part of the development so that my team can take off from there. But for several days, we waited and we could not really get response from that. So I had to escalate that to my manager so that my manager could take it up from there, because it was something that I could not really make a decision on. And when my manager stepped in and into that aspect, the team was able to deliver with urgency, and that really helped us to move ahead, right? So that's a typical example of when you're not able to complete something and you call for someone help. You cannot call for, let's say, another Scrum Master help, right? Because if you do that, it means that you don't understand what you need to do. If, as a Scrum Master, for you to be a performer, you need to be able to communicate. Your strength as a Scrum Master is communication. When you cannot communicate, what you do is that you escalate it to the next level. Yes, I see your hand up. Lima, I'm just going to unmute you and you ask your question. Okay, let me see. Perfect. Go ahead and ask your question. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Doc, can you hear me?
Perfect, I hear you.
Okay, so I think I brought this up before, but it actually happened to me today. So I had to bring it up again. So I had a different resume on my portal a long time back. This was from October of 2021. And I spoke to this recruiter who, found an interview for me, and I did 2 rounds of the interview, and I never heard back from the company or from the recruiter. Today, the recruiter called me again. And this time I have a totally different resume from what I had then. So I told her, she told me to share my updated resume. And now I'm kind of scared because the resume has no updated means you make certain changes but my resume is totally different now. Will that I told her I have a totally, I've totally updated my resume, but I'm saying, doesn't that look bad with
Okay,
the same recruiter?
I think I answered this question last week and said the way you go with that, with Scrum, you're working on contracts, right? So if, let's say, I had this company on my resume previously, and I do an update. Now, a way to justify that could be that the previous company you put were more of the company that recruited you, right? And these ones are more like the end client. So you find out that it's more preferable to put the end client companies. And that's why updating your resume, it's very technical. One of the things you want to kind of really make sure you don't play around so much is the duration. The duration you say you work within that position. So let's say that I had a resume and the Scrum Master position I have for that resume was, let's say, I work with maybe advanced LSE, and I come and I change that. I work with that same position for, let's say, Chase Bank. Now, I could justify that change to say, all right, advanced LSE was my recruiter, the company that recruited me, and the company, my end client was this company. If they did still match, you can justify that. But if the date doesn't match, then that is like a no-go zone. And that's one of the reasons I always say that you need to track where your resume is going to so that you don't get yourself somewhere and you're having like multiple resume in front of them, right? So good enough, you're able to figure out that. So what you want to do is to do a double check. If you work with them and you know the resume you use with them, send the resume you use with them. That's it. Send it the resume, or if not, if you can justify why there are those changes, go ahead and send the new resume. If not, just tell them you're not interested. You're not in the job market any longer.
Yeah, I did send the new resume, and Yeah, it doesn't match at all.
All right. So just hope that they don't have the old one in the system. But if they do, and then they come back with so many questions, it's either you just drop them and move on, or you can
Okay.
find it fine. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
This is also a very technical question. What you want to understand is that it's not compulsory. The reason why when your resume is not working, you have the power to change them is that it's more about you compared to, oh, what if they see this? What if they see this? What if nobody see it? And what if you use what is not working and remain on the same spot for the past? Yeah. Obviously, a couple of recruiters must have your own resume in the system, but your goal is to do what is working, what is going to be your best interest. Now, one thing with being in the job market is that we need to understand that the job market is not fair, right? The job market is not fair, and you also need to play that to your own advantage. And that is why it's very important to understand what you're putting on your resume, why you're putting it, and how you can be able to justify that. That's very important. So if you want to do changes on your resume, it's always advisable, reach out to me. I'm planning to do XY changes. How is it going to affect me? But if you kind of swap your resume all around and then you get to a block, it's going to be difficult for us to handle that. Okay, so let's move to the next question. It says, does IP take place on the second day of the PI planning? What is this followed by? When you say IP, I think you mean innovation planning, right? Innovation planning doesn't take place during the PI planning. IP iteration is what close the PI cycle. So it doesn't close the PI planning. It closes the PI cycle. What is the PI cycle? The PI cycle is between 4 to 6 iterations, between 8 to 12 weeks, right? So some companies even plan for longer than that in practice, but you want to stick with what they recommended. Remember, despite the fact that there is so much differentiation in what happened in reality, the reason why we advise to stay within the standard is because you can say what is right and you can be able to identify what is not really right within the system, right? So that's the reason why we always teach the standard. But if you go into practice, there's so many stuff that are different in practice. There's so many companies that they say they practice Scrum. They don't do retrospective. They don't do reviews, but they still call themselves the practicing Scrum. There's so many differentiation. There's some companies you go in and only you and the product owner and maybe one developer are part of the team, and then you are that's all about it. There's so many companies you go in, the way they do their planning is completely different from what you've learned. But the reason we stick to the standard is because you're able to identify the anti-pattern that they are implementing and see how with time you can help them improve on their processes. Okay. We also have another question. How do you motivate your team in difficult time? Okay, this is a very technical question, but now sometimes when you come across this question, don't only take them in a technical environment, because when you take it into the technical environment, what is happening is that you're finding it difficult, right? It's like, okay, in a Scrum, and then maybe you start thinking about you start thinking about the terms that you've learned about Agile, you want to use them. No, okay, let's say that you have someone that you have a friend and the friend lost someone very dear to them. How do you motivate them? What do you say to motivate them? What do you do? Be there for them, right? Stay there with them, encourage them, just talk to them. You want to stay with them, you want to be there with them, you want to make sure you put them in a conversation so that they don't focus on what is going. So you motivate your team by being there for them, by helping them to focus on the positive and not what is going on, by working with them to look for the way forward. And when you help your team to focus on the value they want to deliver and not on the positive moment, that is when you create the shift. All right, perfect. Now, I also have a couple of questions that are related from the interviews that we have online, which the interview that was shared in the group last week. And I think I picked out about 8 questions from there, which I'm going to address. Then from there, we can now switch into more on the practical part of it. Okay, perfect. My first feedback from that interview was the fact that you need to be very concise when you respond to questions. That's one aspect that was missing. If I ask you, what do you think about, let's say, Agile, try as much as possible to answer that question. What you think about Agile? Now, what you think about Agile, it's a question that you can deal with it in less than a minute. When you see yourself talking for so long, it's an indication that you're not paying attention to the question. So you now bring in so many stuff to talk about it. Now, if you already master Scrum like very well, you can use that approach. If not, you want to stay focused and you want to stay logic. You want to be more logical. So the first question which came out from the interview, like, was tell me about yourself, which is, I always say, tell me about yourself. There are 3 main things which are important you need to focus on. Number 1, you want to talk about your overall experience. Hello, my name is Francis, and I have about 10 years plus overall experience carrying across XYZ industry. And then number 2, you talk about your transition. I gained interest in Agile when I was working on this project that was a bit complex, and I was leading a team of about 5. And it was so difficult for us to get work done because reports were coming in late, nobody was focusing, and we decided to adopt some Agile methodology where we started running daily meetings to make sure that we're collecting feedback from the team and also trying to make sure that we can only commit to what we can do. And that is when I get more interest to learn about the concept of Agile, got certified, picked my first job with Swiss America. But my most recent job, this is what it's all about. Now, when you give your transition, you want to focus on your most recent job. Now, when you do your case study with me, we go through all the different jobs and we look at the case study for all the situations. But when you're talking, when you're an interview, it's not to replicate every bit of thing that you know. An interview is a situation where you want to use it to your advantage. So you don't want to go deep into detail. Now, one of the challenges of being so detailed with responses, it's also the fact that it proves that it shows your weaknesses and it kind of bring the amateur part out of you. For instance, if I ask you, okay, Miranda, how was your day at work today? And you say, oh, it was a good day. We kind of, I did this and I did this. I think overall was good. But if I knew that you were not at work and you told me you were at work and I said, what was your work day at work today? One of the things that will happen is that you try to imagine what you would have done while you're at work, and you start giving me every detail of the stuff, right? Which is an indication that you're trying to kind of cover something. So less and having a conversation is very important. Okay, so let me go through the questions like one after another. I'm gonna just ask the question and then I respond to them the way you should respond. Then we are going to come back to the detail analytical part of it. And we're also gonna showcase what it means with some of those questions when you look at the Jira board. So the first question that was asked was, what do you think about the value of Scrum, the value of Agile? right? The value of Agile. What do you think about the value of Agile? So why do you think Scrum is important? Now, the value of Agile is in the flexibility and the short learning cycle. I think Agile is the way to go because it offers us the flexibility to learn from our mistake and to improve when possible. So I so much love it because of that flexibility. That should be your response. Now, the second question, which kind of followed after that, sorry about that. The second question, which kind of followed about that, I think, no, there was a question that followed about that. And the question like, what if I tell you I don't like Scrum? It doesn't work, right? Now, this is also a question to say that, why should you encourage us to use Scrum? I don't believe it works. It's a technical question, right? So, and her response was, oh, I'm gonna make you like it. No, now, this is a situational question that needs you to analyze something. And that's why I said, not all questions need you to give a response to that. Some just need you to brainstorm with the person. So why would you not like it? What happened? Can you tell me a bit more about why you don't like it? And the person will say, oh, I don't like it because of, then that's the question you should answer. You should address that problem. But I can tell you, oh, why if I tell you I don't like it, and then you go ahead and give me, let's say, a 2-minute response why I should like it. If I say I don't like something, what happened? Wow, I'm surprised to hear that you don't like it. Can you tell me more why you don't like it? And say, oh, I think it doesn't deliver value. And why can probably I might be able to help. I've used Agile. We have constantly delivered value. Maybe it's a challenge in an environment where you work with, and I would definitely love to see what's going on and how we can make it work for you. I do understand the fact that it might not really work for everybody, but the goal of Agile is to have maximum facilitation. That's why we need Scrum Masters. So the success of Agile is in the hand of the Scrum Master. For any company that say Agile doesn't work for them, it's because the Scrum Master is not doing the job. I talk with several people that are working already in the field, and most of the problem, their team members like, oh, we don't like Agile. Agile isn't working for us. Now, when I go detailedly to look at the problem, number one, they're not estimating work. They don't know what they should be doing. So they are committing, they're only 5 team members, they are committing to 85 story points. At the end of 2 weeks, they cannot finish it. They're frustrated. It doesn't work, right? But then, is that what they should be doing? No, that's a problem. They're already introducing the problem themselves. That's why it's not working. So for you to make Agile to work for them, you need to teach them how they estimate work in Agile, in an Agile environment. The number one reason I've noticed across about 20 different teams on why Agile doesn't work for them is that they commit to so much and they are not able to deliver. So at the end of the day, what happened? They feel frustrated. And why are they not able to deliver? Because the Scrum Master is not helping them to estimate the right amount of work. The Scrum Master is not helping them to tell them that, okay, look, this is why we need to take small batches, and this is why we need to reduce them until we can start completing them. What happens when a team complete, you give someone an assignment and they complete it? They're very happy. What if they don't complete it? They feel like they're a bad person, and they feel like they did not do the work. So what happened? They feel like this doesn't work. Even if you give them the second assignment, they're like, oh no, I wasn't able to deliver the first one. I don't think I want to do this again. Why? Because they don't want to be a failure again. So Agile don't work for many companies because the Scrum Masters are not helping them implement it. Now, the second reason why Agile is not working for many companies is because they're hiring technical Scrum Masters. So instead of the Scrum Master to focus on improving the process, the Scrum Master is also focusing on developing doing work. So there's nobody to monitor the non-technical performance of the team and to bring suggestions on how to improve it. For you to effectively bring a suggestion, you need to have ample time to discuss. You need to have ample time to talk with people. You need to just have ample time free to yourself just to make sure that your performance is good and you can help the team. So if you understand that value as a Scrum Master, then at the point where you get into an interview and they say, oh, we're looking for someone that understands the technicality, I always tell them, I deliberately stay away from the technicality because I don't want to be judgmental to my team. If I know what should be done and how it should be done, I'm going to focus on that instead of focusing on helping you in a non-judgmental part of it. All right, so why do I explain so detailedly? That's the reason why they were asking that question. What if I say I don't like it? Find out what's the reason they don't like it. Because and they were not able to deliver value. Why are we not able to deliver value? The only reason we'll not be able to deliver value is because we don't understand the approach we're using. And we are not able to learn from it. So because of that, there's nothing we can like about it. All right. So, and that followed the second question he asked, which is, how do you ensure you deliver tangible delivery during the sprint? Now you see where the first question was leading to. And that's why they asked the question, how do you ensure? Because they have been failing to deliver tangible. The team is planning at the end of the sprint, they're like so many carryover. They were expecting that they took this work, they should deliver it. They're not delivering it. So the biggest challenge is that what? They did not know what they could take. So they committed to 85. Management was happy. Oh, wow, we have 85 story point that will be delivered next week. And the team came and delivered 35. Not even half of that. What happened to management? Now, this is not working. They can commit to 85 and they only deliver 35. This agile stuff doesn't work. So that is the reason. You ensure that a team delivers tangible, they have a tangible delivery by helping them to focus on their strength and their capacity, helping them to know how to estimate the right amount of work so that they can communicate effectively to stakeholders on what they need to deliver and they can deliver that. That is what builds trust between the team and the developer, between the team and the stakeholders and management. But if they don't know the amount of work they need to take and they keep on promising and pulling in too much work and don't deliver it. Now, management is also talking with stakeholders. All right, during the sprint, we are committed to this. And then the stakeholders are waiting for this to be delivered. They say, oh no, we're not able to do this because of this. And the same story over and over again. Then Agile will definitely not work for the company. Now, the next question was, how do you feel you can effectively work from home? I love this question. How do you, there was like, do you think you can effectively work from home? So it doesn't matter where you're working on, whether on home or on site. The goal is to be able to deliver. What helps us to deliver? Understanding what you need to do and doing it. Working on site brings maybe extra interaction, but there are ways in which we can create that feeling working on Zoom, creating opportunity to meet even after we have our session, staying in communication with your team, making sure that you can bring together even games that you can see share some you can see share some fun together, right? So we can still work even if we're not in the same environment. I think someone will remember in those days when we have what we used to call the pen pal, where you can write to someone in a very far away country and you can communicate with them on stuff. So you know that, oh, you have a friend in this country. In those days, there were no Zoom and video to see, but you can write them and you stay in communication. Maybe you exchange pictures and that's all you know about the person, but there's still that connection. So you don't really need to be in person. In person enhance some creativity, which everyone wished that, but it doesn't affect the quality of work you deliver. The next question was, how long have you been doing Agile? All right, I love the way she presented this response. You've not just been doing Agile as long as you've been a Scrum Master. No, Agile, when you start doing Agile, you know that Agile is just a mindset, it's the way we think. And I think even my flexibility to embrace agile principle show that I was already doing agile. If not, I would not be flexible to change, right? So as long as I've been working, I think I've been doing agile, but now to really practice as a Scrum Master, I've been there for this number of years. So that's how you should respond to that question. What if I tell you I hate agile? Right? Okay, that's the question I just answered. Right? What if I tell you I hate agile? That's not a question to say, oh, then I will make you like it, or trying to convince them to like it. Now, that's a question where you pull a conversation with the interviewer. Oh, wow, that's surprising to hear. Why will you say you hate agile? Can you tell me more? Oh, I hate agile because this is this, because of this, because of this. Then that is the question you should answer. So this is like what am I gonna call it? It's a question that needs further follow up for you to provide the answer to it. All right. What is the main challenge? What is the main challenge of agile? What is the main challenge? Okay, I did go deeper into that question when I was talking about why agile doesn't work. The main challenge into agile is flexible. We can allow the team just do plan their work. We can allow the team. Now, if we give the power to the team and the team is not able to estimate what they can do, what happens? They fail, right? So there's no so much stringiness, there's so much power given to the team. And if the team doesn't know how to use that power to create learning circle, to create value, that's the biggest challenge with Agile. Scrum Masters that are not helping their team deliver value. Scrum Masters that are not helping their team to learn. And also, not only Scrum Master, you also have management. Management is imposing so much on Scrum Master to do things in a way that are not promoting agile value. Those are the challenges. For instance, your management say, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this. Your management want a Scrum Master to be the PO and the Scrum Master. So we have the leadership challenge, and we also have the technical challenge. And the next question was, tell me about your experience in leadership and how you organize your team to complete work. How do you organize your team to complete work? It's very simple. Helping them understand their capacity, what they can do best, and what they're lacking in, you help them to learn. So you can always bring a practical scenario to this environment and say, for instance, I could say, when I joined my team, they were having so much problem on the velocity, which means we're fluctuating this week. They will deliver 35 next week, next sprint, they're back to 20, another one, they're up. And I realized that they did not really understand what was their capacity and how they could deliver. So I had to now take some time, observe, meet with them, understand some of the challenges, why they were not able to deliver. And when I understand the challenge and the value of the team, now that helped me to start helping each of my team members understanding their strength, and maybe helping them even taking smaller batches. And when they could deliver, then we start looking at what if we increase it to more story points. And it helped them to understand exactly what their capacity was, and that make them to really be performant. So helping your team deliver is about being there for them. It's not about, oh, we need to complete all of this work. It's about understanding their value and making them understand why they're so much important in the team. If they understand that, then it's going to be very easy for them to deliver. So I think I have two more questions in the chat box. Walk me through day-to-day responsibility of the role and description, and a role responsibility of this role, and a description of the project. I guess you mean the IP planning, or what role are you talking about, Salima?
So you need to unmute me.
Yeah, you're unmuted. Tell me.
Oh, okay. No, this is not related to the SAFe environment at all. I was asked this question today actually to answer before, I even interview. They said to explain what my day-to-day roles and responsibilities are as a Scrum Master, and to describe the project, the latest project I'm working on, and also what the first day looks like how do I set up the Jira board and things like that. I'm telling you, sir, this is getting so complicated.
No, it's not complicated, Salima. It's the way you approach the question. Now, this is where I say that you don't answer a question because you've been asked. You can analyze that question and then provide your own answer. Now, I would say for all the teams I've got into, this Jira board was already set up. So I just need to start ourselves facilitating. I don't need to go start telling you how I set up the Jira board when it wasn't set. In most of the company, you will meet the Jira board already started, except you're taking a team from scratch. You don't have to deal with the Jira board. Most often you have, especially in big companies, you have the Jira administrator, because there's a lot of stuff happening which they don't want one person to manage that. So there's a dedicated person in managing that. So when you ask a question, it's not about you providing an answer. Be logical about it, right? And there's no right way of what would be your first thing to do at work, or there's no right answer to it. When I get to work, my first day is to understand the environment, understand the value of what my team is working in. Every environment is different. So I don't just want to assume that what was working for me in my previous role is going to work for me here. So it's always about a process of learning, and which is where I get to learn about the value of the product, which is when I get to learn about the value and the culture of the people. Now, to talk about your day-to-day as Scrum Master, this simply also doesn't mean that you need to explain all the Scrum ceremonies and how it runs and other stuff. This is also, open questions are very good because you can tweak them the way you want to tweak them. You give them the answer, and then if they want more, they ask you one more than one. Now, if they say, okay, your day-to-day as a Scrum Master, my day-to-day as a Scrum Master is to help my team deliver what they're doing using the Agile values. And when I talk about the Agile value, I'm talking about the ceremony, be it from planning to daily stand-up, to backlog refinement, to retrospective, to planning, to talking to my team members, understanding what their capacity, understanding what they can do. So that is how I spend my days, in cycles of looking at.
Yeah, that's what I wrote.
Work.
That's what I wrote.
Yeah. So you don't need to go say, oh, if it's a sprint planning, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. Give them that high value of stuff. Now, you also need to understand that the way you talk about something is going to determine if I have another question to ask or not. All right. If I say, tell me about your day as a Scrum Master, and I say, oh, wow, it's always exciting to work as a Scrum Master. I get to learn a lot from my team by facilitating events, and I also get to share a lot of statistics on how they can improve. Sometimes challenges and may just come to push you through. Maybe people are not completing their work on time. Some time to get on board and brainstorm with the team and see what happened. Right? I answer that question. I don't have to go into, oh yeah, day one, this is what I do. Day two, this is what I do. Put yourself equal to the interviewer. It's a back-to-back role. As you're interviewing, they're interviewing you, you also need to interview them. Don't only be someone at the end, only responding and expecting for the next question or so. Feel free to, like, someone can ask, oh, tell me about how Scrum, you run your daily Scrum. You tell them and say, oh, is it the same way you do them in your company? Is it, or do you do it differently? Push it back to them, pull a conversation with them. Now that is, okay, now caution, you can only do this if you know what you're saying. If not,
exactly,
stay on the other end, right? But you should know, as I always say, your biggest strength, if you cannot understand back to back all the events in Scrum, you're not ready for interview. If you cannot get up from sleep and tell me about all the events and the procedures and what to do next, then that is what you should do first. I can kind of understand if you kind of not get a situational question right. That's understandable. But if you don't get a ceremony right onto what are the procedure, that's an unforgivable mistake in Scrum. Yes, Emma.
Yeah, Dr. Francis, I just wanted to say something. I thought I was making a mistake because during my interview, the interviewer was saying, "Oh, we were talking about spring review," and he said that they don't do spring review in his environment, and I was like very quick to ask him, "Oh, so how do you get feedback from your customers? And you as an agile coach, how do you feel about it?" But I was feeling bad because I thought maybe I was not supposed to ask him like that quick.
What was the response? What was his response?
So he told me that he was trying to like talk to some of the people up there to see what they feel about it too, because it really bothers him that an event like that one does not take place in his environment.
That was the right thing to do. He did not do anything wrong. So that's you having a conversation with them. That's what we're talking about. Okay, Regina, you have a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what are the various procedures, because I know I forgot most of this.
You need to go back to your book. That's not a question I'm going to answer here. I've done recordings on how to run events practically on Jira and other stuff, and everyone have access to those recordings. If you don't have access, let me know. I will share with you all the events, what happened, how it reflects on Jira. You should study all of that back to back before you get on your first interview. If not, most of the questions are going to be, although the Scrum Master question, they're going to be like you're taking a developer interview, right? So those are your tools as a carpenter. So which, if you don't have them, you can actually perform it. Okay, perfect. So let's get into looking at how most of this stuff we've been explaining in theory, how it reflects on Jira, and what does it mean when they say your team is not performing. I'm going to show you a couple of examples on team not being able to perform and how we can fix that. And we're also going to run a couple of, we're also going to get into breakout rooms and run a couple of practical interviews before we close this session.